All right. Get ready for a deep dive that's a little darker than our usual fare. Today we're going down a path that might make you check the locks on your doors. We're talking about Leonarda Cianciulli, the soap maker of Correggio. Now, before you think we've stumbled into a horror movie script, I assure you this is all too real. Cianciulli was an Italian woman who committed 3 murders, turning her victims' bodies into, well, soap and even food.
You know, what I find truly fascinating about this case is how it goes beyond the sensationalism of a true crime story. It forces us to ask uncomfortable questions about human nature. How far would we go to protect the people we love? What happens when our beliefs, even if they seem outlandish, take complete control?
Absolutely. Now, I know this kind of story might appeal to true crime fans out there. And maybe you're interested in Italian history or just the plain bizarre. Whatever brings you here, this case has a way of getting under your skin. Picture this. 1930s Italy. A country steeped in superstition. On the brink of World War II. It's against this backdrop that our story unfolds. A strange mix of mundane domesticity and absolutely horrific acts.
And to understand how this all happened, we need to understand Leonarda Cianciulli. She was born in 1894. And let's just say she didn't have an easy start. She experienced a lot of loss early on, including multiple pregnancies that ended tragically. And her relationship with her own mother was quite difficult, with her mother being very controlling.
That already paints a pretty bleak picture. Mm-hmm. But then you add in the element of superstition, which was so prevalent in Italy at the time. Cianciulli had a couple of encounters with fortune tellers that really seemed to stick with her. One predicted she'd marry, have children, but lose them all. And another went even further, saying she'd see prison in one hand, a criminal asylum in the other.
Imagine the weight of those pronouncements. They must have been terrifying for her. You know, at the time, fortune-telling and prophecies weren't just fringe beliefs. They were deeply ingrained in the culture, especially in rural areas. People genuinely believed these predictions could shape their destiny.
It's almost like these prophecies became self-fulfilling. But if we shift our focus to Cianciulli's adult life, there's one thing that becomes abundantly clear. Her intense love for her surviving children, especially her son, Giuseppe. With the threat of World War II looming, and Giuseppe about to be drafted, her fear turns into a kind of obsession.
This is where the story takes a truly dark turn. Faced with the prospect of losing yet another child, Cianciulli becomes convinced that the only way to protect him is through human sacrifice.
No, I know what you're thinking. Human sacrifice.
It's
the 20th century. It seems unfathomable, right? But Cianciulli's belief in this, fueled by her desperation and her faith in those earlier prophecies, became her horrific reality. And sadly, her first victim, Faustina Setti, was about to walk right into her trap.
What's chilling here is the level of premeditation. Setti, a middle-aged woman who had never married, came to Cianciulli for help in finding a husband, and Cianciulli, pretending to be a helpful friend, concocted a plan, telling Setti she knew the perfect match, a wealthy gentleman living in Pola, a city across the Adriatic Sea.
Cianciulli even went so far as to have Setti write postcards to her family and friends, detailing her supposed new life in Pola. It was a carefully crafted illusion, all designed to cover up the horrific truth.
On the day of Setti's supposed departure, she visited Cianciulli one last time to say goodbye. And it was during this visit that Cianciulli carried out her plan, striking Setti with an axe and ending her life. What followed was a scene straight out of a nightmare.
Now, I know the details are gruesome, but I think it's important to understand the sheer brutality of what happened. Cianciulli dismembered Setti's body, cutting it into 9 pieces. She then used caustic soda, a highly corrosive chemical, to dissolve the remains. You might be wondering what caustic soda is. Well, back then, it was a common household product used for things like making soap and unclogging drains. It's powerful stuff, capable of dissolving organic matter.
In Cianciulli's mind, this was all part of a ritual, a necessary sacrifice to protect her son. But it's the way she carried out these acts, with a sense of practicality and detachment. That's truly disturbing.
And if the use of caustic soda wasn't disturbing enough, Cianciulli took her actions one step further. She reportedly used Setti's blood in her baking, making these crunchy tea cakes that she served to guests, even offering them to her son.
This juxtaposition of the mundane and the macabre is what makes this case so deeply unsettling. It's almost as if Cianciulli compartmentalized her actions, separating the gruesome reality from her everyday life.
But her reign of terror didn't end there.
Francesca Soavi became Cianciulli's next victim, like Faustina Setti. She was a woman seeking a fresh start. Cianciulli, using the same deceptive tactics. Promised her a job at a girls' school in Piacenza, another city far from Correggio. Again, there were the meticulously written postcards, creating a false trail of a new life, a new beginning.
And you can almost sense Cianciulli's confidence growing. This chilling belief that she was in control, that she was fulfilling a dark prophecy while simultaneously defying fate by protecting her son.
And so the pattern repeated itself. Zevi visited Cianciulli for a final farewell before her supposed journey, and once again, Cianciulli struck. Taking Soavi's life with brutal efficiency, she then followed the same horrific steps, dismembering the body and using caustic soda to dissolve the remains.
It's hard to fathom the level of detachment required to commit such acts, let alone repeat them. It's like a descent into a kind of twisted ritual where the gruesome details become almost secondary to the perceived purpose behind them.
And then came Cianciulli's third and final victim, Virginia Cacioppo, a former soprano. Cianciulli lured her with the promise of a secretary job in Florence. By this point, her methods were well practiced, the cycle of deception and violence becoming almost routine.
But there's something about Cacioppo's murder that stands out, something that takes this already horrifying story to a whole new level of disturbing.
This is where the soap maker moniker truly comes into play. Cianciulli, perhaps emboldened by her previous acts, decided to do something different with Cacioppo's remains. Instead of simply dissolving them, she embarked on a chilling experiment. She melted the remains down, mixed them with ingredients like cologne and other chemicals, and made soap.
You know, I read accounts where she describes the process with a strange sense of pride. Talk about how the soap turned out creamy and white. It's almost as if she found a perverse sense of accomplishment in her gruesome craft.
And what's even more unsettling is that she didn't just keep this soap for herself. She gifted it to neighbors and acquaintances. Imagine receiving a bar of soap from a seemingly friendly neighbor, completely unaware of its horrifying origins.
It's a detail that sends shivers down my spine. And for me, it speaks to Cianciulli's distorted sense of reality, this belief that she was somehow purifying these victims through this process, turning them into something useful.
It's also a reminder of how easily a charismatic personality can mask a darker side. Cianciulli was, by all accounts, well-liked in her community. She was seen as helpful and even charming. This dissonance between her outward persona and her inner darkness makes her story all the more chilling.
But as they say, all good things must come to an end. And so it was for Cianciulli's reign of terror. It was actually a family member of her final victim, Virginia Cacioppo's sister-in-law, who started to piece things together.
She had witnessed Cacioppo entering Cianciulli's house on the day of her disappearance, and she grew increasingly suspicious when Cacioppo never returned. So she decided to report her concerns to the police, and the investigation began.
Initially, Cianciulli denied any involvement in Cacioppo's disappearance. But the police, sensing inconsistencies in her story, began to dig deeper. As the pressure mounted, Cianciulli made a hateful decision.
Driven by her unwavering need to protect her son, she confessed everything. She provided detailed accounts of the murders, the dismemberment, the caustic soda, the soap making. It was all laid out there, in her own words.
And during her trial in 1946, Cianciulli didn't shy away from the horrific details. She corrected the official account at times, adding her own commentary, almost as if she was relishing in the attention.
I find it fascinating that even during the trial, Cianciulli maintained a sense of righteousness, even going so far as to boast about giving the copper ladle she used in her crimes to the war effort. She saw herself as a patriot, someone who was making sacrifices for the greater good.
That's a level of delusion that's hard to comprehend. And what about remorse? Did she ever express any regret for taking the lives of these women?
Not really. It was always about her son, her conviction that she was acting out of love, that these were necessary sacrifices to ensure his safety. This warped sense of maternal devotion was at the heart of her defense.
The court, however, wasn't swayed by her claims. They saw Cianciulli for what she was, a cold-blooded killer who had meticulously planned and executed these horrific acts.
She was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 30 years in prison and 3 years in a criminal asylum. And so, the woman who had once believed she could control fate, who thought she could manipulate death itself, ended up confined, her life dictated by the very forces she sought to defy.
So, what are we to make of this story? Is it simply a case of a deranged mind, a woman driven to madness, perhaps superstition and desperation? Or is there something more profound here, something that speaks to the darker side of human nature that resides within us all?
It's a question that continues to fascinate and disturb, even decades later. On the surface, it's a tale of murder and madness. But if we look deeper, it compels us to confront uncomfortable truths about the nature of good and evil, the power of belief, and the lengths we go to for those we love.
And it's a stark reminder that while society has progressed in many ways, the potential for darkness to emerge, for seemingly ordinary people to commit extraordinary acts of cruelty, is always there.
Absolutely. Cianciulli's story may be a product of a specific time and place, but the lessons it offers are timeless. It's a stark reminder that the line between good and evil can be blurry, and that even in the most ordinary-seeming individuals, darkness can lurk beneath the surface.
So as we delve deeper into this unsettling case, let's consider how societal pressures, the anxieties of war, and the enduring power of belief can converge to create a perfect storm of darkness. Because sometimes the most horrifying stories are the ones that are all too real.
Well said. We can't change the past, but we can learn from it. And by understanding the forces that shaped someone like Cianciulli, perhaps we can better recognize and prevent such horrors from happening again.
It's a chilling thought, isn't it? That someone like Cianciulli could exist, could blend in so seamlessly with everyday life, while harboring such darkness. It makes you wonder, could a story like this happen today? I mean, we live in a different world now, right? More scientific, less superstitious. But are we really so different?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And while we might like to believe we're immune to such acts, history has a way of repeating itself, often in ways we least expect. Think about it. The core motivations behind Cianciulli's crimes, the desire for control, the desperation to protect loved ones, these are timeless human impulses. They can manifest in countless ways, even in the absence of overt superstition.
So, if we're not living in a world of fortune tellers and prophecies dictating our every move, what should we be looking out for? What are the red flags that might signal someone is heading down a dangerous path?
Wow. I think it's crucial to recognize patterns of manipulation and isolation. Cianciulli preyed on vulnerable women, offering them hope and then systematically cutting them off from their support systems. That's a tactic that's still very much in use today, whether it's in cults, abusive relationships, or even online radicalization.
That's a really good point. It's about recognizing when someone is trying to exert undue influence to control the narrative and limit access to outside information.
Exactly. And while we can't go around suspecting everyone who's going through a tough time, it's important to be aware of these dynamics. Cianciulli's story highlights the dangers of blind trust and the importance of maintaining healthy skepticism, especially when someone is promising easy solutions to complex problems.
And let's not forget the role of misinformation in shaping our beliefs and actions. Cianciulli was heavily influenced by prophecies, by a worldview that justified her horrific acts in today's world. With the constant bombardment of information, it's more crucial than ever to be critical thinkers. We need to question sources, consider different perspectives, and avoid falling prey to those who peddle fear and easy answers.
Absolutely. We have to be vigilant, not just for our own sake, but for the sake of those around us. Cianciulli's victims were trusting, hopeful women who were looking for a better life. They never could have imagined the darkness that awaited them.
So let me wrap up this deep dive into the unsettling world of Leonarda Cianciulli. I want to leave you with this thought. Let's all strive to be a little more aware, a little more questioning, and a lot more vigilant about protecting ourselves and those around us. Because sometimes the most horrifying stories are the ones that remind us that the potential for darkness exists in every era, in every corner of the world. And the best way to combat that darkness is through knowledge, critical thinking, and a healthy dose of skepticism.
Well said. We can't change the past, but we can learn from it. And by understanding the forces that shaped someone like Cianciulli, perhaps we can better recognize and prevent such horrors from happening again.